Sean Hamel here with another episode of the Origins Podcast. Today, I have Dr. Deren Flesher, dentist, coach, inventor, tech entrepreneur, AI builder, Kansas City sports fan, Oklahoma sports fan. See, I'm doing good because we just talked about these. Did I miss anything? Dad, right?
Yeah,
I got
dad,
that one.
volunteer coach,
Right?
all the
Volunteer
things.
coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on here. I know you and I have been talking for a long time, just kind of on the phone and things, and kind of bouncing ideas and stuff back and forth. And really appreciate you coming on to Origins. Thanks so much for making it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I kind of go into your comment about we've been talking for a while. It's nice to have somebody that we can bounce ideas off of and maybe even disagree with in a positive way. Like we don't always agree on approaches or concepts, and we both respect that in each other. So that's been valuable to me.
Yeah, and it's, you get locked in a vacuum and you're surrounded by yes people, and it is definitely nice to hear pushback, especially because I definitely know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but sometimes you kind of get in a vacuum with your ideas. So I definitely appreciate that about our connection too. And Doc, you have such a varied background. I don't really know what to hit on first. Obviously, dentist, practice owner, practice builder, left the practice. You built Medento, left Medento. Now you're building AIRO Dental, which is your new AI platform. I know we've talked about some other things that I don't know if you want to talk about those things yet, but you have all these different things going on all the time. What was kind of your genesis into dentistry? How did you get into dentistry? Did you always want to be a dentist? What did it look like as you moved into practice ownership? Like, let's start there and move, because I know there's a lot of rabbit holes we could jump down.
Yeah, it's a good question. So going back further on the timeline, both my parents are medical people. They're both nurses. And so hospital medicine was what I knew growing up. Thought that's what I wanted to do myself, but honestly didn't love where that was going as a concept, with a lot of those doctors becoming hospital employees, and the path was really long and competitive and expensive. I would have been 30 years old before I ever even got to do anything in medicine. And it just wasn't appealing to me by the time I was actually making those decisions in like mid to late college. But I had stayed on that path from a like coursework standpoint. Sciences and math and all the kind of stuff was there. So pivoting to something else related, but not exactly hospital medicine, was easy from a pursuit standpoint. So I think junior year of college, I started shadowing during the summer, like different kind of medical-ish professions, whether it's optometry, chiropractic, surgeon, anesthetist, all the kinds of things that I was thinking about. And the dentist, and I would finish each of those shadow sessions with one question, which is, if I was your son, would you tell me to follow the path you've taken? And all the medical doctors said no. This was back in Obama's presidency. And so Obamacare was coming along, and there was a lot of uncertainty around what that was going to be and what that was going to mean for them. And they weren't loving where medicine was going for them. And dentists were the only ones across the border that were like, yeah, actually my son is going to come work for me. And we're going to, pass this practice down and all this kind of stuff. And so between that and the fact that there was still true ownership possibility, like entrepreneur, owner, I control the schedule, I hire the team, I make this vision my own. I set the hours, all that kind of stuff. That was still a possibility. And then the ability to kind of work with my hands and be creative, but also be very scientific. And it was just the right blend for somebody like me. And so I didn't really land on it until very late in college. It took me 3 tries to get into dental school. A buddy of mine, Mark Costas, likes to talk about his 21 tries, which sounds like a big number. It was really 3 years, 10 tries twice, and 1 final try the 3rd year. That's exactly my story as well. I actually had 21 applications and got in on the 21st one my 3rd year. So anyway, yeah, I was older-ish dental student. There were plenty of people who were second career people, but I was a couple years older, and really focused and excited. But clinical has really honestly never been my passion. It was more of the other stuff. It was more of the entrepreneur, build a business, really pull the levers on the flow of the practice, the psychology around the verbiage that we use and the order of events and things like that is what really speaks to me. And I guess to fill in a little bit of background, my undergrad degree was in psychology. So
Mm.
a little bit non-traditional in that way too. I wasn't biology or chemistry or anything like that. It was
Hmm.
psychology with a lot of organic chemistry electives and stuff to meet the requirements. But so anyway, that's kind of how my brain is wired, is thinking about like, what did you say? What did you mean? Could you have
Hmm.
flipped those two words to mean something different? And so I really focus on that a lot, both personally, but also in how my office approaches things. And that's the part that I think is fun, is kind of the game of the business of dentistry, more so than the clinical side.
That's interesting. Do you think your psychology degree and background was more of a superpower with dentistry being such a relational business? Like, do you think it helped?
I think it did help a lot. I didn't realize it at the time. And obviously, when it took me 3 years to get in, I thought it was a detriment, because I
Hmm.
didn't have the traditional science background. But, now that I finally broke through and got where I wanted to go, I do see it as something I lean on. Not directly. I don't think like, oh, I'm using my psychology degree right now. I just think like that's how
Hmm.
my brain is wired to think about things differently and not just be status quo for the sake of it, or using the verbiage that somebody suggested. Like, I really think about, what does it mean, how could I say that differently or better or with more intent or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I do think I lean on it quite a bit.
So when did Medento enter the chat? How did that come into being? When did you was it an idea for an issue that you had, or was it just kind of an idea for the industry? How did that happen?
So it would have been 2017, if I'm ballparking. This it kind of all blurs together as far as what happened when, but probably around
Hmm.
2017. Was looking for particular solutions in my practice. Had ideas of what I would call modules in a software that just didn't exist, and so I had a choice of. There were some players in the space already, a lot of legacy players that had been around for years and had what they had and weren't really evolving. And I could either go to them and volunteer my idea and just hope that I got to eventually use it, and that would have been great. There were a couple up and comers that were coming onto the market. I could have probably tried to partner with them or sell my idea to them, but then comes the complications of who, NDAs, and did I really come up with something unique and all that kind of stuff. And then
Hmm.
what I ultimately ended up doing is, I said the third option is I could just go build the legacy versions essentially, and then layer my couple ideas on top of it. But I'm gonna have to lay the groundwork here first. And so that's the path I ultimately chose, was um, let me go build what already exists and then layer my ideas on top of it. And that's how we're going to be better and different and the preferred option out there in the ecosystem. And we went from, nothing to something like 2,100 users between 2018 and 2021. And I don't even know what it's at
Hmm.
now. Dental Intel knows, I don't know, but several thousand users at this point, and a household name, and one that I'm proud of the process and where it got to. I don't have any direct affiliation with it these days, but I'm proud of that journey, and it taught me a lot, and it's lending obviously to what I'm doing now, which is another software company.
Yeah, so let's talk about AIRO. I know it's AI. I know we've had chats offline about AI and its various uses, but it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like from what you were telling me, I mean, my big beef with the AI piece, as you know, is it takes the personality, it takes the patient experience, and it levels the playing field again, because all the bots are kind of the same. But that's not what AIRO is. AIRO is more into what we were talking about that I was hoping for, where it's able to be more empathetic. It's able to kind of nurture and do the things that really you need to do in order to get somebody to choose your dental practice.
Yeah. So just for clarity, Arrow is AIRO. So it's got the AI in the name, which I liked. But
Hmm.
yeah, so to your point, I mean, I've seen and demoed pretty much all of them out there, whether they're dental, non dental, generic, AI assistant, receptionist for any industry, whether it's real estate or car dealerships or dentistry specifically. I've demoed dozens of them, and
Hmm.
they all do the same thing in varying degrees and varying capabilities and voice qualities and latencies and all the things. They have kind of a glorified FAQ. They may or may not integrate with some sort of Calendly or Google Cal or something like that, but they don't really understand what the business is and what it needs. And similar to how I thought about Modento, is it's not a replacement for anybody at your office. It's meant to be an enhancer for the people who are doing the job at your office and allowing them to be more human rather than replacing the human. So there are a ton of tasks that absolutely should be human driven and human centric, whether it's, checking people in and having conversations about their kids or their grandkids or the vacation they just went on or the pain that they're experiencing right now or whatever. And on the checkout, talking about finances and being empathetic around the considerations with, can I afford all this and how do I phase this out and all that kind of stuff. I want my team to do all that, and I want them to spend all day and as much time as they need doing those things. I don't want them to be pulled away to answer the phone, but at the same time, I don't want the phone to ring while somebody's sitting there, because then they think, is that's what happens when I call? Like, they're just going to ignore it, because that's not cool either. So I'm trying to solve this problem of, how do we answer all the calls? How do we do it consistently? How do we do it in a way that, I'm not trying to trick anybody to think it's a human, but how does it feel human and how it happened and the way it guided the conversation, and it listened and it knew what I needed it to say and the order of events and what information did it gather. And so it's 100% consistent. It answers up to dozens of calls at a time. So you can literally never miss one unless you had 30 people literally call in the same 2-minute period, which never happens. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't have bad days. It doesn't have a million things on its plate where it gets distracted or forgets to ask that question or gets real short with somebody. It's trained to have patience. It's trained to have empathy. It's trained for, being energetic and upbeat and really listening and guiding them to a scheduled appointment. It's not just an FAQ about where are they located or what insurances they take. It's really like, it's geared towards appointment scheduling.
That's awesome.
And it integrates with your EHR. So it's actually going to go from start to finish. It's not just a taskmaster where it takes the message and passes it onto your team and creates more work. It's actually taking the work off their plate. And so the way I see most people using it, and the way I'll use it, the way I'm using it in my office, is overflow. Like, I want people to be people when they can be. I think that's what really creates value. But if the choice is, we miss the call, and that means they either aren't taken care of or they call my competitor down the street, or I can have this AI who's trained on everything about my office and acts as an extended team member. I'm going to choose the latter. I'm going to choose to have that call be answered and get the at bat there to get that patient in and see them and take great care of them. So anyway, that's the 3-minute rundown of what AIRO, at least module 1 of AIRO is. There's actually going to be a handful of other aspects. This is kind of what's out there in the market right now. So this is where we went first, to not have to explain a whole new concept to people. But there will be eventually a couple ideas that I've got in my head that are things that don't exist at all right now. And that's the part that really excites me. I want to do this because I think there's a better version than what exists. But what I'm really excited about are creating the things that nobody's thought of yet. And that's what's going to be probably in the next 6 to 12 months.
That's awesome. And when does, I know we're recording this in May of 25, but when does AIRO launch? You said it launches soon?
It should be May. I would be surprised if it's not in the month of May.
And where can people get info for that? And I'll put the details in the show notes as well.
Yeah. It'll just be airodental.com, AIRO dental.com.
So you're doing this clinical dentistry, doing the dad thing, doing the husband thing, doing all these things. And then you're also coaching with DSI, which is Mark Costas's group. How did you get into the coaching world? What was that journey like?
So I think, kind of going back to my psychology thing, I think of things in a way that I'm really good at distilling information into a understandable and repeatable way. Like, I really feel like I can dissect something and make a system out of it, instead of just enjoying that it worked and not really understanding how I made that happen and hoping it happens again. Like, I really can think things through and make it kind of a recipe, if you will. And so, part of Mark's group is high performance, systemization, low overhead. I mean, any coaching group wants to achieve those things, and his group is really great at it. I think there's a couple hundred people, maybe 250 people in the mastermind now. And there's 20 of us coaches at this point. Originally there was single digits. Now we're up to double digits and maybe close to 20. And it's just fun to like get out of my element, not be in my practice all the time. So I take probably Recently it's been a little bit lower, but I've had as many as 30 phone calls in a month, or about half an hour a piece. And they schedule with my Calendly. They list some issues they want to talk about, and I look at their numbers. We've got kind of some centralized reporting, and they either tell me what they've got going on, or I go dig into the numbers and tell them what I see, and we chat through. And I'm supposed to be the numbers guy. That's kind of who I am with that group, is metrics and numbers, but nothing is ever just numbers. It's always something further upstream. It's interpersonal issues. It's not having the right, team member or the right workflow, or, something else upstream. And we solve the numbers by talking about the real problem, which is often a little bit buried or unseen by the person doing the coaching or receiving the coaching. So it's really fun for me to kind of, like I said, get out of my practice and go think about other people's stuff. And I honestly learn as much as I give, because it's just, everybody's got their own unique situations and things they're trying to solve. And it lends to me kind of keeping my wheels turning about, okay, this is the thing that people have going on. This is something I could help others with. The software thing, it's informed that to some extent, and kind of indirectly, just making sure I'm not building this just for me. I'm building it for, John Doe dentist out there, making sure this is universally applicable.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see it. And I mean, I know you've got a million things going on. We have a lot of mutual friends, and many people speak highly of you and have encouraged me to reach out, which kind of was the reason I did months ago, or however long ago it was. But I'm curious, Doctor, with your psychology background and the fact that you're coaching and you're doing all of these things, is there something that you see maybe that is maybe a drawback or a setback for doctors in terms of their mindset around one thing, or a certain maybe aspect of their business that you see that's kind of universal, maybe like some hacks that you could give, or some ways of using your background to where you see kind of the same foundational problem, or as you're digging back layers, you start to run into the same issues? Is it like communication? I mean, is there anything, first of all, that you see that kind of across all the practices is there? And what would you recommend if somebody does suffer from that problem or those issues, maybe as a first step to looking at working with you potentially, or with a group like DSI, or just a coach in general, to make their practice better?
It's funny you said the word I was going to land on before you said it. That was what was in my head, is communication. I think we dentists are often type A. I'm in the trenches. I want to just serve patients and do quality clinical care. And we get, even as an associate, we get unfortunately tasked with managing people and teams and personalities. And, as a male, it's always a bunch of women. And so it's just different on like how you handle that. And I've never met a dentist who over communicates. It's always the opposite. I'm literally experiencing that in my own practice right now with an associate who is awesome clinically. He's probably my favorite associate I've ever had from a clinical perspective. My team is having to eventually or currently get on board with like how assertive he is with his treatment planning, because we've always had like under treatment planners, and he's way more on the other end of the spectrum. And I actually personally agree with his approach to dentistry way more than I've agreed with the other side. But he just doesn't explain it well enough or sell it well enough to the patient sometimes. And it leaves the team a little bit confused on what he wants or what he means. And so I don't want to continue to pick on him. But my point is, I've never come across a dentist that I feel like says too much, is over communicative, explains what they're doing. And that was, when I was clinical, my assistants said they always loved working with me, not because I was some hand god, but because I would just talk to them. I would say, okay, here's why I do this. And it's not about the molecules or the way it bonds. It was like, here's the functional step. Like this thing is like the soap and it cleans the tooth. And then this thing is the thing that's like the glue for the next part. And so, I would explain like, here's the wedge and here's the matrix. And the matrix is like the little fence here that you can stack your cement against and make the shape of the tooth. And so I would talk them through just what I'm doing and why. And nobody ever does that. They just want the next thing, and they expect people to like memorize steps without really having any context or background or understanding of where they're going with this. And so I think that's one thing I would take away if I was listening to this as a dentist. Like, just talk to your team, let them know, within reason what you're thinking or what you need from them, or even more importantly, why. Like, what are you trying to get to have happen? Sometimes you ask for something, and when you tell them the why, they tell you a better way to accomplish your why, because you only have your perspective and they've got their perspective, and they might have a better tool or a better method for that. And so just by being willing to share why you're doing or what you're trying to do, I'm surprised all the time on who has great ideas and who can make us more efficient or a better team or whatever, just because I share with them. So that's the one thing I'll take away, is just communicate better.
Doc, how many times when you go in to help a team or to help a doctor, is this communication piece like a part of it or a major part of it? Because I know earlier you were saying what the issue is. A lot of times you dig deeper and that's not the issue. It's just like a symptom of the issue. How often is the communication piece like part of the, I guess, disease, you could say, or the lack thereof?
I would say literally 50% of my calls are some issue that somebody has brought to them, and all they brought is the problem, and they've not brought solutions, and the doctor feels the pressure to solve the problem. And so I tell them to turn that around on that person and say, look, I want to help you. What do you want? Like, how do I help you? Give me some options here on what you're trying to accomplish with your ask, whether it's a pay raise and you have to explain to them about, your profitability or your lack thereof, or your fees or whatever. Like, don't own something that they need to own. Make sure that they don't just come to you with problems. They come to you with solutions for the problems that they are perceiving. And so literally, like I said, 50% of my calls have some element of that in it, where I tell people, like, you don't have to own all the problems of the world in your practice. Like, I know ultimately we talk about extreme ownership, like Jocko Willink stuff, where like you just take it on and you sometimes quote unquote own things that aren't really your problem, just to kind of get past it or get through it and kind of fall on your sword and move forward and all that kind of stuff. But from this perspective, like, you need your team you kind of need to outsource some of that ownership sometimes, especially when they're bringing to you something you didn't even perceive as a problem. And like, you don't have the bandwidth or the desire to dedicate, your extended hours, your weekends to solving that. Like, they probably clearly do have something they want to have happen. They just want you to somehow read their mind and figure it out. And so I just tell them, like, talk to them, let them tell you what they're thinking. Let them tell you ways that you could solve this. And then you can maybe go from there, in the same way that what I said earlier about, if you tell them your why, sometimes they have great solutions for you. Sometimes they can tell you what they're thinking in this regard, and you can help them choose the best of those solutions.
It's awesome stuff. I always love our chats and really appreciate your insight on so many things. Doc, how can people listening get a hold of you if they're interested in just learning more? Maybe they're interested in working with you in a coaching capacity. Maybe they just want to learn more about AIRO. Maybe they want to talk to you about something else. How can people best get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah, you can email me. I've got more email addresses than I can count, but in the context of what we're talking about here, you can just email me at Deren at AIROdental.com. That's DEREN at AIRO Dental.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Doctor, appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping in. Always excited. Looking forward to seeing AIRO, and hopefully get you up for Royals and Chiefs this year. It's going to be a couple epic seasons, and hopefully I'm going to try to get down there this year for the Thunder game too. We'll see.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of Thunder playoffs. Hopefully this is the year. And as you know, I make it up to a Chiefs game every year, at least one, but I haven't been to a Royals game in forever. So I'm hoping to make it up there with my son this summer. He's a avid baseball player. This is Mother's Day weekend, and we're playing baseball all weekend. So we love baseball. We just need to we've got a little minor league team here in Oklahoma City, an extension of the Dodgers, which coincidentally, that's the team we're talking about maybe trying to go see in June
27th.
Yeah, so that'd be fun. Go see Bobby Witt and Shohei and have some summer baseball.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully I'll see you up here. Doc, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, take care.